Hello and welcome to today's RIMS webinar, sponsored by Tuve Global Risk Consultants, Seeing the Unseen, nVent's proactive approach to fire risk detection with infrared imaging. I am Justin Smollison, Business Content Manager here at RIMS, the Risk and Insurance Management Society. A few notes before we begin, folks. If you have a question for the presenters during today's session, please submit them by writing in the question box. Feel free to ask at any point during the presentation. We will reserve time at the end for Q&A. Following this session, the recording will be available through the on-demand events page of rims.org. All downloads and contact information will be accessible to the sponsor. RIMS is thrilled to welcome a global audience, and now I will hand it off to our moderator, my friend Jared Shelley of Tuve.
Thank you, Justin, and hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Jared Shelley, Marketing Manager at Global Risk Consultants. Today, we're going to discuss the power of infrared thermography and fire risk engineering. nVent is on a mission to identify and mitigate all fire risks, large or small. nVent is the global leader in enclosures, complete heat management systems, and more. Executives at the company know that proactive fire protection promotes a culture of safety and allows them to secure the most favorable terms and conditions possible from underwriters. In fact, many meetings at the executive level start with conversations about safety first, then move on to the business of the day. What is nVent's secret weapon for reducing fire risks? Infrared thermography from Global Risk Consultants. With cutting-edge infrared image cameras, GRC risk engineers can detect abnormal temperatures and other fire risks that are invisible to the naked eye. In today's webinar, we will explore emerging trends in property risk engineering, the power of infrared thermography as a non-destructive way to identify issues, nVent's approach to property risk management, and how infrared imaging helped nVent better protect its assets. Today's speakers are three incredible experts on the topic of proactive risk management and infrared. Felix Brabi is Director of Risk Management and Insurance at nVent. He is an experienced senior risk manager with a history of working with global teams in various industries. He previously worked with Ashland and Shaw Industries. Peter Lin is Vice President of Risk Engineering at Global Risk Consultants. He has years of industry knowledge and a track record of success helping industry leaders grow their businesses. He previously held senior leadership roles with Marsh, AXA, and Zurich. Daniel Jolliffe is account engineer and senior thermographer at Global Risk Consultants. He has expertise in many industrial manufacturing sectors such as power generation, food, chemical, automotive, finance, hospitality, and retail. One quick note before we begin. I will serve as moderator asking questions to our panelists. If you have a question, please enter it at any time and we will answer it at the end of our program. We want this to be an interactive discussion, so please get your questions in. Okay, so here is my first question. Peter, can you provide a brief primer on the property insurance market at the moment and explain some trends that amplify the criticality of sound property risk engineering?
Thanks, Jared. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody today and look forward to having this dialogue with everybody. I think that when we think about the property insurance market today, I think the best way to probably describe it in one word would be challenging. And it's been challenging now for a number of years. We continue to see composite property insurance pricing on the rise. The rate has mitigated to some extent, but for the most part, depending on the geography, the industry, et cetera, we still see rates on the increase. We also see a very intense valuation scrutiny on the values of the building, both from a physical asset perspective as well as from a business interruption perspective. We're seeing far more disciplined underwriting right now with selective capacity and limited program options. The industry and the geography or the exposure to Nat Cat actually really drive the appetite in today's market, saying that broadly. Natural hazards or secondary factors are critical for modeling and predicting the losses in some of those types of exposures. And risk managers, what's happening is that risk managers are retaining more of their risk. They're seeing these costs go up. They're retaining more business. In some cases, they're going to captive solutions. Even on the property side, it's becoming a bit more popular these days. And captives, indeed, have been popular for many years, but are more popular in property now. We also see that in the risk management community, risk managers are taking a far more holistic view of risk, looking at these various macro trends that are affecting them beyond just necessarily the property the property risk that we're primarily talking about. And then the last thing, I'll make one last comment. I attended an industry event last week in Germany. And the industry event, which involved carriers, brokers, clients, et cetera, the same issues that we're talking about here are the same issues they're talking about over there. So I think that these property insurance market themes are themes that we're actually seeing globally right now, not just in the U.S.
Great. Thank you, Peter. And Felix, let's go to you here. Do you agree with Peter's assessment of current industry trends? Also, can you explain how emerging trends impact your role as a risk manager?
Yeah, Jared, thank you for putting this event together today. I would like to say that Peter is wrong in his assessment, but unfortunately he's correct. He's spot on from what we have seen the past 3 to 4 years. It has been a very challenging market. Carriers are scrutinizing the data that we submitting to them. Whereas in the past, you're looking at small locations, nobody will budge. But now, you have to justify all the numbers that you are presenting to the market. And a lot of this is due to inflation. Everybody's experiencing inflation, right? Cost of bill. So because of that, carriers are saying, hey, evaluation, and that is something that we have done ourselves too. Evaluations, new bill. We are doing that, working with a real estate broker, looking at what does it cost to build in a particular region in the world. One of the things that we are also seeing is that you have to spend some time with your underwriters and your insurance partners to explain your risk and what sets you apart from the another company, and all the things that we are doing. Hence the service that we have with our GRC and why we are here today. All the things that we are doing for businesses, so there will not be any losses. So you have to do that. And then one of the things that we also trend that we are seeing is that where that was not the case 4 or 5 years ago was ESG. ESG is becoming more common now, getting questions on it. And then also for us, ESG is great. So for example, I know we're here talking about infrared. We do scans in all of our sites and looking at what is overheating. And also helps us with energy savings, right? So we're able to, the results that we get from that to help us to reduce our energy bill. And then the last thing I would say, it's also going back to ESG, is not looking at the climate and then the future. So I'm being brought into COP 3 studies, looking at our sites, where they are now, where would they be? Is it right now? It might not be in a flood zone, but 10 years from now, 20 years from now, where would that be? Where would that site be? Would it be in a flood zone? And then also working with management to see where should we put facilities? Stay away from wind zone. Don't go here. Put it over here. So these are all the emerging trend that is going on now. That was not the case. I would say 5 years ago.
Thank you, Felix. That's a great answer. And we're going to go back to Peter here for the next question. With the hard property insurance market, how critical is it for risk managers to tell a compelling loss control story to underwriters?
So, Jared, it's probably more important now than it ever has been. As I mentioned earlier, we're seeing much more disciplined underwriting happening right now, really across the world, and the ability to present an organization's risk profile in the best possible light and get the best terms and conditions available is absolutely critical. And something that Felix mentioned a moment ago, I think is important important to say here that, we can talk about increased loss control requirements. We can talk about the need for senior management support, independent verification, et cetera. But this whole topic of sustainability and ESG that Felix mentioned a moment ago, this is actually now part of that story. A lot of the things that we talk about, and we primarily are dealing in the property space, but there's a lot of overlap, and I'll probably come back to this in later on in this session. And telling that holistic story, it's not just line by line anymore, right? It's taking that organizational view, looking at those macro trends, looking at for example, how is a business managing their supply chain? What's the exposure to Nat Cat? What about climate change, right? What does the climate change picture look like now and 10, 20, 30 years in the future? What's happening in the area of technology innovations at a client, and also what's happening in the area of cyber protection? So there's a lot of this notion of storytelling is not necessarily an easy thing to do, but it's a very, very important thing to do, and something that makes a big difference from the perspective of the underwriters who are looking at the business.
Absolutely. And we're going to go here to Felix for the next question. Now that we have a sense of the current landscape, can you please explain your goals when it comes to loss control and risk management?
Yeah, loss control, it's in its first line of defense, right? So this is something that we take very, very seriously at nVent. And just to let you know, so for example, the relationship with GRC it's maintained through risk management and not with the operations. I mean, we work a lot with the operations, but that is retained with risk management. But our number one goal is the safety and health of our employees, right? We want them to go home safely after when they come to work. So that's our number one goal. And then also I would say that protecting our assets, that's also a goal for us. And then helping us get favorable insurance term, and then not minimizing business disruption to the businesses. I mean, nobody wants to working through a BI claim. It's not easy. So if as much as you can avoid it, you always do what you can to avoid it. So, and we do that through our loss control. And then also I'm a believer that if you have a great loss control at your facility, chances are you are going to produce great product. So that is something that I strongly believe in, and that's why we take these things very, very seriously in terms of loss control, to a point where I know I will talk about it later, where everything is on a schedule. So if a service is not show up at our particular site, they will come and say, hey, this so-and-so have not shown up this year. What is going on? And I have to remind them, oh, they are coming, but it's not time yet. So the facilities come to expect this, and they take this thing very, very seriously. And then the last thing I would say is that organizations like ourselves would take a higher retention. So our skin is on the line first. So anything that will happen, our skin is on the line. So we're going to make sure that we don't have to pay out any claims. So we do all these things, and so far, I mean, knock on wood, our loss history has turned out that all the things that we are doing is working.
That's great, Felix. And before we get into specifically how nVent used infrared to assess its fire risks, I want to briefly loop in Dan, who's an expert in infrared thermography. Dan, can you just explain what is infrared thermography? How does it work? And why has it emerged as a leading way to uncover potential fire risks like abnormal temperatures?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Jared. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And you've got a great definition of what infrared thermography is up on the screen, but this is a question that I've probably been asked by every person I've ever told that what I do for a living is infrared thermography. So I've had quite a bit of experience in formulating a personal answer. But in its most simple of terms, infrared thermography is really the process by which, through the use of thermal imaging cameras, these are cameras that allow us to see into the very narrow spectrum of light known as infrared. It lies just outside of the visible spectrum, what we might see with the naked eye, and that we are able to use these cameras to detect all manner of thermal anomalies. Anomalies, what probably most people in the room would more commonly call hotspots, these would be naked to the human eye. And oftentimes, The temperature differences that we're talking about, these discoveries, they provide no other exhibitions. There would be no other way to detect the failures that we're discovering in the field. It's really one of the best methodologies that I've ever been exposed to regarding a non-contact, non-destructive, non-invasive, and possibly the most important non-disruptive form of inspection at the facility level. With infrared, it really behooves us, if the facility is fully up and running, we want everything running at the plant. We don't want to interrupt plant operations at all. But infrared thermography serves us as a method of apparatus monitoring and failure detection that, when is used appropriately, is nearly foolproof. Infrared allows us to see exactly where and how actively electrical and mechanical apparatus are failing.
And thanks, Dan. And we're gonna ask you another question before we get into the case study. And that question is, can you show us some emerging technologies in infrared and explain how they're helping risk managers identify abnormal temperatures and fire risks?
Sure. If I'm to be completely honest, the foundation tech surrounding infrared has really not been changed. Infrared has been around for hundreds of years, believe it or not, but obviously with it has come many additions that have made us more efficient, have allowed us to track data more accurately. And probably the largest of these additions is software development. In recent years, the software has just made these huge strides that allow us to, set up particular routes tied to specific GPS coordinates when necessary. The software developments that are now being made allow us to make adjustments to our images that we were never able to before, that allow us to track heat sinking across an item, that allow us to pinpoint exactly where the genesis of an issue is residing. And this all notwithstanding, just to say that the cameras become simpler to use every year. They become simpler to use. They become more affordable. The resolution of these cameras is constantly getting better. New software and algorithms are allowing us to map hyper-accurate tank levels. This has been extremely handy for us with fire suppression systems. And then along with software innovations, there are also ancillary technologies coming alongside infrared that allow us to be more accurate, that allow us to work safer. Items such as infrared windows. Infrared window customization has grown by leaps and bounds, and in the most recent years, we can basically create and customize windows to go on any type of apparatus that you can think of at the plant. And these windows, in many cases, are allowing us a first look at certain live high voltage systems that would be under roof that would otherwise have been completely inaccessible, and we have never been able to look at live before. So the windows are just a boon to our work. The technology for the infrared group is growing seemingly every day.
Great. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. So let's get into the case study, everyone. What did GRC do for nVent specifically, and what were the results? Felix, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, so we use GRC for, I would say, 4 services. So we use them for your traditional fire inspection, boil infrared inspections, boiler inspection, and also we use them for plan review. If we are about to go into build a new site or at least a new facility, we would like to get the plans first and send it to GRC for them to review for us in the early stages. So infrared, as I mentioned earlier, all this stuff is controlled by my department, and this is something that our operations have. It's part of their process, right? So we have the inspections on a scheduled basis for some facilities every 12 months, some every 24 months, and then so forth. But recently, there have been some great catches for us. I don't know if you have the. You probably go to the pictures later, but there are some facilities where we have some near. Do you have those pictures? Or are you gonna get to it later?
Yeah, we'll get to it later. Maybe Dan, you can talk results, and then we'll jump into the examples.
Yeah, absolutely. I could certainly read off the slide, and 639 recommendations that have been mitigated over the life of the program is certainly a great number. But, while I was thinking about what I would say here, I really got to thinking about what in the world does that even mean? 639 recommendations that have been fixed. And, the question is there any danger that's even associated with an infrared recommendation? And the answer is yes. And in reality, the best way to think of an infrared recommendation is to think of them as potential and, in all likelihood, probable fires. These are fires that nVent has successfully stamped out over the life of the program. I'm sure that pretty much everyone in the room has been made aware of arc flash, arc blast events. And with regard to infrared recommendations, by the time we discover these recs, I just think it's important for everyone to know, by the time they are discovered, they are in a state of failure. They are in the process of failing. And it is not a matter of if, but rather when these items are going to catastrophically fail. And when they catastrophically fail, what we see, what we have noted, is that there is a small, albeit small, arc flash event that's associated with it. And we've had the opportunity to monitor these arc flash events. Arc flash events can take place in temperatures in excess of 7 times the surface of the sun. So we're talking about incredibly high temperatures that pose direct fire risk. Anything that's in, on, or around the cabinet is going to be directly at risk. So this number, the 639 recommendations that have been fixed, since the beginning of the program, is really just a testament, not to us, but rather to nVent's commitment to mitigating these issues.
Absolutely. And let's get into some examples, guys. Dan, would you like to start here?
Sure. So we do have a couple case studies here of different types of recommendations that we might find at a plant. This first one we discovered earlier this year. It's at one of the nVent facilities. And for those of you that might not be aware, what you're looking at in the image on the right is essentially an incoming utility feed. This is basically the incoming power for, if I recall correctly, over 50% of this nVent factory. And in the event that this equipment were to fail, we are talking about, in all likelihood, 100% plant shutdown until repairs have been made. What you see on the left image is one of our standard thermal images. We've got a breakdown and synopsis of the specific temperatures and specific spots. And what we have is a histogram line that's been drawn across all 3 phases, all 3 of these high voltage fuse clips. And as you can see, in the histogram temperature chart right below the thermal image, we have spikes. This is obviously something that's somewhat concerning. We don't want to see these spikes in temperature. What this implies to us is that you've got a very inefficient connection. You've got dirty connection. And what we have is, instead of efficient energy transfer, we've got energy going into heating up these components. And it goes without being said, once they heat up to a certain degree, they're going to begin to fail. And when they fail, we get plant shutdowns and business interruption.
Great. Felix, what are your thoughts here? And how did how are you mitigating?
No, and this is a good example. So this was came up earlier this year, and the facility immediately sprang into action and working with the local utilities to fix the issue. So this is one of them, and there are one that vividly fresh on my mind. A couple of years ago, our largest manufacturing site, we have an issue that was also discovered, and if we would have caught it in time, that could have burned down one of our largest facility. And this thing was, the inspection came up with the issue. We shut the factory down for about 5 hours, and the team got to work, and they were, to repair, and then the factory was back up and running again within 5 hours. So this is now, I would actually say, this is one of the most appreciated services that we provide our businesses that they look forward to as much as the annual maintenance operating plan that they expect to looking for the infrared inspection from GRC. And if the GRCs do not show up, they will ring me and say, "Hey, when are they coming?"
Right, and let's get to the second example here, guys. What are we seeing here?
Yeah, so what we have here is a recommendation that was discovered under roof, obviously. And for those of you that can't make it out in the image on the right, what you're looking at is a high voltage bus duct or busway. And essentially, this is a high voltage line that runs through the facility. You might be able to make out on the busway some small individual buckets that have been placed. And what those serve as are essentially outlets that the facility can then plug into and run operating equipment. So for busways, what we're looking for, what we would like to see is a nice and even temperature all the way across the busway, especially because this is high voltage that we're talking about. And as you can see on the thermal image on the left, what we have is quite a bit of temperature variation inside of the bus duct. This implies that we've got inefficient connections again. It could be dirty, it could be full of contaminants. And the reason that I wanted to include this particular finding is because it presents a direct fire hazard to the facility. When these bus ducts fail, they tend to fail catastrophically. When that happens, there is typically an arc flash, arc blast associated with the event. We're talking about severe conditions for personnel that would be in the area. And when they do fail, they tend to pour molten copper down on the floor underneath where they are. So this was a great find earlier this year.
And Felix, what are your thoughts on this?
No, here's another one too that from earlier last year where the facility immediately sprang to actions to fix it because like Daniel said, if this thing were to fail, you're looking at a potential complete plant shutdown. So as part of the annual operating plan, they went ahead and shut the site down and went ahead and fixed it.
Great, and
I would like to we do this. This service is we take it globally, right? So all of our manufacturing facility, this is something that we are doing. So and so far, I would like to say it has worked out for the past 20 years.
Great, thanks, Felix. Yeah, it's pretty amazing that you can shoot a camera up there and see all these things that unseeable to the naked eye and potentially really dangerous. So really good, guys. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and I would like to say, I know Peter talked about it earlier, but some of our facilities have went out and gotten their own camera to do in the interim, also to do some scanning themselves too, to see what they will find. So this is something that we strongly recommend it, and our team believes in it.
Absolutely. And Peter, let's go to you. What are your thoughts on nVent's approach to risk management and fire loss control, and what can other risk managers learn from their approach to replicate success?
So one of the things, Jared, that I mentioned a little bit earlier is that today we see a lot of risks overlapping and having a synergistic impact. In this case, we're talking about fire, we're talking about infrared, we're talking about employee health and safety, we're talking about supply chain, we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about all these things are now overlapping. And one of the things that nVent's been doing here is very much taking this holistic view of risk. And as we say in insurance lingo, looking at the total cost of risk of the exposures. nVent has done a terrific job in looking at risk in this way, but also specifically with a firm like nVent having many different carriers on the program, it's quite critical to be able to. We talked before about telling the story, but we also talked about the importance of satisfying the various needs of the carriers who are on the program. embracing infrared in this case, not only through GRC, but also, as Felix said a moment ago, getting their own equipment to do these things at the local facility, I think is absolutely critical. The other thing is that nVent has not had any significant losses, and losses are property losses, or any kind of loss for that matter, is becoming a very, very significant criteria by which underwriting and the markets are looking at evaluating risk. So the fact that there has been minimal, if any, significant losses is really a strong attribute to the things that nVent is doing from a risk management perspective. The last thing I'll say is that there's a great opportunity and a great benefit in networking with other risk managers, whether they're in the same industry or the same geography, as the case may be. I think that there's great ideas out there. Certainly here, we're highlighting some ideas from nVent, but there's other firms out there who are doing some very interesting things in terms of the way that they're handling these types of risks. And I know that Felix wouldn't say that he's 100% confident that he has addressed every single possible risk, because nobody can say that. Right? There's always something else out there. There's something new. There's something emerging. So having a community of risk managers or CFOs or people that are taking that there's a lot of value to it. And what I've seen in my career is that even firms that are competitive from a business perspective don't tend to be competitive from a risk management and safety perspective. The risk management and safety perspective tends to cut across that competitive issue. And I've seen many firms who are natural competitors in the business sense or the commercial sense, been able to get together and share ideas about the ways in which they're doing things. So having a forum like RIMS obviously is a tremendous forum and a tremendous platform to be doing these types of things, but having other forums available, whether they're local or by industry, is something that we support very, very strongly. And we also recommend all of our clients and risk managers to take advantage of.
Great. Thank you, Peter. And Felix, we'll go back to you here. Do you recommend risk managers work with an independent loss control partner for infrared and fire risk engineering?
Yeah, man, I love this question. This is always an interesting question. I would say it depends. Each company has to do what's best for them. But I know for us, in a large complex program with many different carriers on there, it worked for us. So definitely, this depends on the type of risk that you have. But if you have a large complex program, I would definitely say working with an independent risk engineering it has its benefits. Where you can believe in the data that you are getting, that there is no any different objectivity to what you are getting. So and that's also from independent in the independence, right, that we rely on the data, that it's not, the inspections are not being done for one particular carrier's point of view, but this is a third party, providing services for all of our panels. So I mean, I can't tell what other companies do, but I know for us, having a third party performing your separating the engineering from the insurance, it has worked for us over the years. So, but we always keep evaluating it. But so far, this is it's working for us.
Great. We'll go to one more question, and then we're going to get to the Q&A. So I urge you to continue getting your questions in. We're going to take one last question from me, and then we'll go right to the Q&A. So get your questions in, and we'll start the Q&A in a moment. But the final question here is, Peter, Dan, how can a company get started with fire risk engineering or infrared thermography? And what are the steps to putting together a successful fire risk engineering program with infrared? Who wants to jump in on that? Dan, Peter?
I'll start, Jared, and I'll hand it over to Dan. When we think about risk management and risk engineering, one of the first things we always think about is identifying the current and future exposures to, in this case, the property, but it's not only the properties, to the people. It's all exposures to risk that we want to be thinking about. What does that exposure base look like, and what is the risk, what is the probability, and what is the vulnerability of those issues that we've identified? So we want to both quantify as well as qualify that risk, and what does that impact look like on the business from several angles. It includes the people aspect, it includes equipment, it includes buildings, it includes resiliency, supply chain, some of these things that we've been talking about. It includes a risk to climate, it includes sustainability risk, which we talked about before. So once we have a clear picture of that, and I understand that that's an evolving picture. It's not typically static. Things are continually changing. So this is an exercise that has to be considered on effectively an ongoing basis. But once we have a good handle on it, mitigation of risk, transfer of risk, or otherwise managing the risk through the use of professional and credible partners, through people in-house, through other organizations that are involved in the insurance business is critical. And the last thing I would add to that is having that view by industry is quite important, because when we think about exposures and we think about vulnerabilities, it does vary pretty considerably from industry to industry. You know, we wouldn't compare an nVent with a company that's in a completely different industry in terms of the types of risk that they face. So there is some value to homogenizing that view of risk. Dan?
Yeah, I think some of the first steps in putting together a successful infrared program would certainly be getting buy-in from upper management at the plant and just educating people, educating as much of your management team as is humanly possible. The cameras are complex, they're not impossible. There are plenty of good online courses and courses that you can send maintenance staff to make sure that they're familiar with the equipment that we're talking about. I think that ensuring that a solid one-line diagram of the facility is in place is a fantastic first step. Ensuring that all PPE that would be necessary for your staff would be in place before a survey like this would take place. I think actually before that, the importance of considering an arc flash study be completed beforehand. Arc flash study, for those in the room who might not know, give us a very specific set of protocols and guides that staff can follow while performing this inspection. It's one of the most vital steps in putting a solid and safe infrared program in place. And then, of course, last is probably getting out there and buying a camera. We encourage almost every site that we go to buy a camera of their own. You know, many of the inspections we perform for nVent specifically, we're going there once a year. We're finding some very influential type recommendations, and we would certainly recommend that the site be able to go back and check on their repairs in the interim, in between our visits. I think every facility would benefit from that.
Great, thanks everybody, and want to thank you. We're going to move to Q&A in just a quick sec, but I just want to say thank you to everybody. This has been really a great presentation so far. So everybody jump in, get your questions in, and we're going to start to answer them right now. While I do that, I'm going to just leave our contact information here, but we're going to answer all the questions as they come in. So let's get to the first question here. This one is, how do risk managers ensure risk is mitigated at sites if and when the person has no direct reports? Is there a normal review cadence for open actions?
I can start with this one. So I would say partnership with your facility. You know, you have to you and your facilities and the risk manager have to be on the same page. Plus, also using the GRC platform of, was it GRC Connect? Also using that to monitor the finance is also is a great way to start.
Let me add something to that one as well. One of the things that we've seen, I've seen, I should say, in my career, is that there is sometimes we see a very good relationship between risk management and safety. Other times we see that they are in different divisions or in different reporting structures. I think that in the case of the question there that was asked, is, leveraging the resources that may be available in EH&S or facilities also to take an active and accountable role at the local level, especially when we're talking about companies that have many locations, and having that strong relationship with risk management to have boots on the ground, as they like to say, in-house boots on the ground in some of these different facilities with specific accountabilities.
Great. Thanks everybody for these answers. Let's keep going. Are there, Peter, you had touched on this, but are there any differences in how infrared imaging is used depending on the type of industry? Peter, you had mentioned the nVent would have maybe a different type of program than someone else, and the question here from the audience member, basically is that, right? Is there different? Is infrared imaging used differently in a different way in say maybe the food and beverage industry versus a manufacturing plant?
I would say no to that question. I would argue that it's used universally. Sorry, I know that's a short response, but in truth, we use it from. We use it from everything from grain production to food production to steel mills. There's no industry that it doesn't. There's really no industry that our processes change.
Okay, good. Let's go to this question. Is there any mechanism to quantify the actual amount of electricity being consumed as part of the wasted heat generation?
So there is equipment that exists. Oftentimes it's owned by the utility provider and they can monitor. This is not typically information that would be shared with the facility. But one of the advantages of the software algorithms that we've been able to create, for instance, at GRC, we've been able to create an energy cost savings sheet that after analyzing the thermal images that we've taken, we can provide a specific breakdown of cost associated with these loose connections.
Yeah, and I can say that that's something that we are doing here at nVent. Look, and as I mentioned earlier, we are starting to buy some of these cameras to do the scanning ourselves to try to see where we're losing energy, any hotspots we're losing energy in our machines and our equipment, and then for the facilities to go out and fix it, and we can see that it's helping us reduce our energy spend as part of our ESG goals.
Absolutely. Let's get to this this next question here. Do property carriers provide premium discounts if an employer utilizes GRC services?
So, Jaron, this one here is not an easy question to answer. I would love to be able to say, hey, yeah, absolutely. If you use GRC, you get a discount in premium, but that wouldn't be accurate. What is fair to say is that when underwriters are looking at pricing of business, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But one of the factors, and a big factor, is the quality of the risk. And when everything that we do at GRC is to try to help our clients improve the quality of their risk. In many cases, the clients are already doing things in-house, internally, using other partners, et cetera. But our role is to try to help our clients improve the quality of their risk, also to better understand their risk, to quantify the risk in terms of data and exposure, to calculate the proper loss expectancies, which is a critical aspect of underwriting. We do all of those things. But at the end of the day, the quality of that risk, we can guide and help guide our clients in terms of ways, and we think that we can help them improve the quality of the risk, improve loss expectancies and things of that nature. But it is ultimately the responsibility of our clients to actually do the things that we're recommending to them. It's nice to be able to say that we've got terrific relationships with almost all of our clients, great partnered relationships, but it's really that risk quality and the data, the quantifiable way that the underwriters look at risk, which includes those loss expectancies, which is absolutely critical. And that's the area that we work with our clients. So that's a kind of a roundabout way of saying that GRC helps our clients, and by helping our clients, we help them get the best possible terms and conditions from the underwriting community. But it's not just, there's not a direct correlation.
Yeah, and to add on to what Peter said, I mean, I cannot imagine meeting with underwriters and they ask the question about loss control, and what you tell them if you're not doing any loss control services with somebody like GRC or any of your competitors. So I'm guessing for certain companies, I mean, it is expected that you do some kind of loss control services like with GRC. So do you say I'm guessing you do, but I don't have any way of proving it. I mean, well, I guess I can. If you don't do it, I'm sure your rates are you're not gonna get favorable. It's not gonna be considered as a quality risk.
Great, thanks, guys. Let's see here. Should locations routinely de-energize facility infrastructure to perform routine cleaning of equipment?
Yes, absolutely, they should. And there is a plethora of these recommendations listed in NFPA 70E for those who would like to go and avail themselves of that. Routine shutdown and maintenance, the de-energization of a plant is highly recommended. We recommend it on a yearly basis, and absolutely cleaning is a large part of that, but exercising of the equipment is the other half of that equation. We absolutely recommend the cleaning and exercising of said equipment.
Great. Here's another. So how can I decide whether it's time to hire a third party to do infrared or buy an infrared camera and do this myself?
I think that depends on just how deep into the weeds you would like to get, and if you feel that whoever it is that's providing your service is providing an objective service. What I find, just from 20 years in the field, what I find is that a lot of electricians will own a camera of their own. They'll go to the plant. Well, what I find is that many times their training is perhaps maybe not up to date. The camera hasn't been calibrated in years. And those are all questions that the plant would really want to ask themselves before they purchase a camera of their own as well. Are you willing to get into the upkeep and maintenance and calibration and the retraining of the staff, before you delve into purchasing a camera of your own?
Great. Well, thanks, everybody. That's all the questions we have. And I'm going to kick it over to Justin in just a second, but I just want to thank you, Dan, Peter, and Felix. And unless anybody has any final words, I'm going to give it back over to Justin for his final word.
No, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, no problem. And Justin, yeah, you can go ahead. I think you're on mute.
All right, here we go. That was great. Well, RIMS would like to thank Felix Brabi of nVent and Peter Lynn, Daniel Jolliffe, and my friend Jared Shelley of TÜV SÜD GRC for their time and expertise. A copy of this webinar will be available on the on-demand events page of rims.org within a few business days. For more information about TÜV SÜD, you can visit tuvsud.com/GRC. Folks, one or two quick final notes. The RIMS ERM conference will be held November 2nd and 3rd in Denver, Colorado. Visit the events page of rims.org to learn more. We want to see you there. Finally, RIMS is global, and we'd love for you to build your network with us. Visit rims.org/membership to apply for a RIMS membership. This was a great session. Thank you all, and stay safe.